senior here at Bates, pronouns he, him, his. I'm a double major in politics and Spanish with a minor in history, and I study abroad. I studied abroad in Madrid, Spain in the fall of 20. Anna, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Miles. I'm Anna. I am was a senior. I graduated in December at Bates, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I studied abroad in Salamanca, Spain, and I'm a double major in psychology and sociology and a minor in Spanish. Oh, Emma, if you want to follow it up.
Sure. My name's Emma. I'm a senior biology major. I use she, her pronouns, and I studied in Peru in two cities, Iquitos and Cusco. Erick.
Hey guys, my name is Erick. I'm a senior from Los Angeles, California. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a dance major and I studied African dance at the University of Cape Town in South Africa during the fall of 2019. Nicole.
Hi guys, my name is Nicole. I'm a senior. I did Cities in the 21st Century. So it was a multi-country program. So I started off in New York, went to Argentina, then went to Barcelona, Spain, and ended in Cape Town, South Africa. And the name was IHP Cities in the 21st Century. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for those introductions. Now for the first question, how did you go about choosing this program or location that you went to? For example, were there any significant factors relating to the program that helped you apply and go abroad, such as courses, travel, housing, etc.? Would you like to go first and answer?
Sorry, who did you say was going first?
Yeah, Emma, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's the one word I missed in that sentence. So with my time at Bates, I really wanted to see as many different ecosystems as I could because I'm a biology major and I tend toward ecology and everything about nature is very interesting to me. And I thought, of all the ecosystems I might possibly get to visit in my life, I'm probably not going to get to experience the Amazon rainforest as much as I would really love to. So that was the #1 driver in picking this program. I also don't speak Spanish, so I needed a program where I didn't have to speak Spanish, and that was mostly science focused. And so that kind of narrowed it down to one program for me, which was the School for Field Studies. And they have locations around the world, but I was interested in their Center for Amazon Studies. So location was the major driver and language, and then the field of study was mostly focused on science.
Erick, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I thought of my abroad experience, at least, taking classes at another university would be beneficial in fulfilling major requirements and just like getting me ahead in all the credits and all the requirements that I need in order to graduate. But after like doing the math, I found that I could take a semester abroad and take any classes without having them contribute to my requirements or credits or anything like that, and I still would be fine in graduating in time. So then that gave me the liberty to just be like, okay, where do I want to go? And so it was regardless of my major or areas of study, I was just like, where have I never been? Where do I see myself never going because I don't hear it around me enough, or I don't hear people who have been there enough? And so I looked at primarily like countries in both Africa and South America. And then there was a beautiful crossover between dance programs in South Africa and broad programs in the continent of Africa. And I was like in love. That was kind of the extent of my research. I was really going with this in a, take it all in. It's a new experience and you're going to get so much from it kind of thing. So I actually didn't do any more research other than that. And I just like took a leap of faith, went to South Africa and had the best time. So that was my experience.
Awesome. Nicole, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I have a gag in globalization. So I was looking for classes that would satisfy that gig. And I was also interested in the different countries as well. Like I'd come into Beza, I'd always been fascinated about the language Spanish. So like I knew I was going to Spanish speaking countries. So that would be fun for me, but mostly the gig and also the semester. So I'm a chemistry major. So that semester as well, there weren't as many classes as I could take towards my my degree. So that helped that I could just work on my gig. Then when I came back in the winter semester, I focused on my chemistry classes. So my academic plan also played a factor in my decision making.
Great. Finally, Anna, would you like to talk about your experience?
Yeah, definitely. So I decided to go abroad in Salamanca, Spain. And my main driver for choosing a program there was the language component of it, because I am a Spanish minor and I'd been studying Spanish since I was 12, but still spoke awkwardly and wanted to get some of the formality out of my voice, and also just kind of obviously to experience a new culture and completely immerse myself in a place where I could do that comfortably. Well, comfortably, I guess, is a term that I would use loosely, but in a way that I knew the language enough that if I got lost, I'd be okay. And so I was looking at programs in both South America and in Spain. And one of the factors that pushed me towards Spain was I had an internship that had really concrete deadlines. So that is something, I guess, to consider is the timeline of both the abroad program and if you have any summer commitments at all. So that meshed really nicely. And then having it down to somewhere in Spain, I chose Salamanca because not only would I be able to study at the University of Salamanca while I was there, in addition to the IES abroad program, but Salamanca is also a smaller city. And since Lewiston is by far the biggest city that I've ever spent any real amount of time in, going to a much larger city was a little intimidating in that I haven't navigated public transportation and things like that. So Salamanca offered that smaller city in addition to being able to study at a university. And then another main factor was that I wanted to go somewhere where people wouldn't see my red hair and try to speak English to me. So that was nice, going somewhere that I could actually use my language.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the second part of the questions. So I have two questions. So what was the toughest part of the registration or the application process? And how much time did you spend on the registration/application process? So I'm just gonna start off. So it was just like I went on the SIT website. So there are different types of programs that you can do. There's like the health program, there's the human rights program, there's the cities program. So it comes down to like which one you want to do. Then I think the hardest part in my case came after I got admitted because I am an international student. So I had to apply for visas. So I ended up applying for a visa for Argentina, for the US, because I needed a US visa. I applied for the Argentina visa, then applied for the Barcelona visa. So I think it's something to really check well, like if you have any like visa requirements, and that the Center of Global Education really helped me with acquiring the 3 visas that I ended up needing. And the actual application, I would say, was just a short essay and like a portal of like, you know, like what we did with applying. It was, I would say, easier than applying to college. Yeah, so that's how we did. And I applied to only one program. Yeah, I'm gonna give it to Erick.
Yeah, I totally second that, Nicole. It was like a pain in the butt trying to get the visas. I was lucky that there was a South African consulate in Los Angeles, but when I got to my program in South Africa and I was meeting all these other American students who were coming from places like Vermont or Texas or Wyoming, they said that they would have to like fly or drive to their consulate because there wasn't any in their city, in their state. And so I just think making sure you have all those in line. I remember there was a moment where I like read briefly what the requirements were and I'm like, okay, I can save this for later. And when really reading into it, I was like, oh, this is going to take actually a month to finish and I only have a month to finish it. The deadline's in a month, right? So there are situations that you just have to be so careful, because I was so thankful that I caught that mistake early on, but also regretted the fact that I didn't do that as soon as I was looking into the program, because I think that kind of just like organizational skill will just like set you up for more success when applying, less stress for getting all those things in. Yeah, so there were things like that I was just like, oh man, I had to go get a FBI background check, and then I had to go get my like all these forms certified at a notary, right? And I was like, I didn't even know what these things were. And so just getting familiar with that early on, I think is gonna just ease the process. And so if I could give any advice, that would be my advice, because that was definitely the toughest part and the most annoying part of the process.
Oh, Anna?
Yeah, I would definitely echo that on the visa being the most difficult part of the application, because it was really simple to just go on the IES website and choose Salamanca. And I think I just had to have a few letters of recommendation, as well as an evaluation of my Spanish speaking skills by a professor. So I had to get a couple of those things done, but overall that was pretty simple. And they made it really easy to fill out the forms and to hand them in and to know exactly what I needed to turn in when. The visa was a little bit more complicated because I was lucky in that there was a visa, a Spanish embassy about 3 hours from where I live. Downtown Chicago, but driving through downtown Chicago, and I was able to get that. But then also when you go to get your visa, make sure you know exactly what you need to present when you have your visa, and how they want the payment. And because we went to this gas station that looked all dangerous to have to get a money order for the visa because we weren't allowed to use a check. And just know exactly what you need to have before you go into your application for your visa. Yeah, and definitely what Eric said, don't wait on the visa. Do it as soon as you can.
Okay, Emma, then Miles.
Yeah, I think the visa is actually not the most complicated part for me, because Peru gives you a visa when you go in, but they gave different people in our group different lengths of stay. Fortunately or unfortunately, we were all sent home before my visa expired, but they gave me like a really short stay, and we were going to have to go to the main city, and we weren't near a main city, and it was an 1.5-hour drive and a plane ride. And so it would have been a complication, not something I could have controlled beforehand, but it is good to know that you will have to be flexible when you get there, because visas may not always turn out to be as reliable as you think they will be. For the application process, I think I had to write a couple essays and get recommendations. Then I also had to do a phone interview because the program is like physically intensive and socially intensive. You're living together 24/7 in a very closed environment. So they just want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. So it was mostly them telling me what to expect, but also just making sure that I was somebody that they would want to be living closely with for all that time. So it wasn't as hard as applying for college, but it definitely took some time and some thought.
Yeah, just trying to echo everyone who just talked about the visa. Yeah, that was pretty much the toughest part about registering for the IES, or the study abroad program that I went on. And I'm not sure if anyone else had this experience for the panelists, but definitely it was sort of all the health and medical forums, definitely going to the doctor sort of weeks or couple times before I had to go to Spain, and that was really difficult, trying to rush back to the doctor back home and making sure they get it shipped to the office within the right amount of time, because as I think everyone said, there's deadlines. You have to get things in a certain time. And also as well, I needed to get my passport checked for some reason. And yeah, it was just it was a lot. So yeah, definitely, I was very thankful to have an advisor for the program. She, and along with other students along with the program, it was basically where you were located by school. So basically, essentially, schools in the East Coast had a certain advisor than kids on the West Coast, and the South had a different advisor. But definitely, I was very thankful to have an advisor who went step by step on what I needed to do, what my parents needed to fill out. And so, yeah, I was very lucky that I was able to have a guiding hand through all this process. Yeah. Yeah, so moving on to the third set of questions. This is actually a pretty important one. Did any of your identities impact your choice in program or location? I'll start for this question. Studying just the history of Spain and studying Europe overall, this would be my second time visiting Europe, but only definitely my first time being in a non Spanish speaking or non-English speaking country for a long period of time. And that was really, really scary. Exciting as well, but definitely I had some moments where it's like, am I really doing this? Am I really gonna take this risk or this jump? But yeah, that's part of, I think, the experience of studying abroad, is to just have the opportunity to study, learn, travel, and interact with people that you don't normally interact with on a normal basis on campus. And I feel like I think everything that happened, my experiences beforehand at Bates, really sort of incentivized me and motivated me to study abroad. But yeah, while I was there in Spain, I was very fortunate to be, I know, welcomed by all the students and all the staff. Even though I was going through my head that, well, the program wasn't exactly racially diverse. I was one of the few Black students there, and that, I mean, to me, that wasn't really surprising, because it's Europe and it's Spain, so diversity is not really big there. But still, I was very thankful to be welcomed and treated fairly by my professors and my fellow students, both who were native Spanish speakers and also from students from other countries and other states in the U.S. So I was very, very lucky for to have that good experience. So I'm gonna go with Nicole next.
Yeah, so I moved a lot because that's how the program was set up. So started off in New York. So when I moved to Argentina, so I think throughout I saw my identity continuously shift, and like the way they viewed me and the way I viewed myself. So for example, when I got to Argentina, not only was it a Spanish speaking country, is I'd say less diverse in terms of, yeah. So it was quite an experience. Sometimes like I would get into the bus and everybody would stare at me, and then my Spanish was just still, So because I didn't take Spanish at Bates, so I was learning through conversation. So my host mom was actually the person who was teaching me the basic words. So when I got to Spain, it was also a transition in the sense that I was excited that I had picked up these Spanish words, but it turns out I was speaking Argentinian Spanish when I'm in Spain. So there was also now that piece of like people would look at me and be like, what's happening? Then when I got to South Africa, it was more familiar because I'm from Zimbabwe, so we border South Africa. So I felt very comfortable. Like I felt like I was walking in the streets I grew up in. So that was very different. So I think that's something to think about in terms of like your location and in terms of the actual program. So I also took a program like Emma's where you stay within the cohort. So I wasn't necessarily registered to a school like a university. I was registered to a program. So it's something to think about, like, do you want to go to like UCT? Do you want to go to Edinburgh? Or do you want to be part of a cohort? So if you're part of a cohort, for us, we'll travel together, we'll do everything together. So yeah, so like it was my identity in the group and my identity in these cities that I was living in and my identity in the country as well. And another piece was also being an African who lives in America. That's also another identity. So like it was all this, I like continuously navigated with language, culture, race, and my gender as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna give it on to Erick.
Yeah, so I feel like back to a previous question we asked about how we chose our program. I feel like there was also this like internal subconscious choice that I made of not wanting to go to a white country. I think as a student of color, I was just like, I don't want to be isolated. I did a short term, just the time before my semester abroad where I was in Europe, and I just had unfortunate experiences with my peers of color interacting with Europeans, and it was traumatizing, and it was something that I had to consider thinking about where I wanted to go for 4.5 months, let alone 4.5 weeks. So I thought about that. And so I thought about being in a space that is super diverse. And in Cape Town, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and Cape Town reminded me so much of Los Angeles because it is so diverse. You know, you have people from all over the world, and specifically at UCT, a university that was 40,000 students. There were so many students from Europe, so many students from America. So it was cool to be a part of this community that wasn't entirely familiar with one another when it comes to culture, when it comes to you know, your background and where you come from. Something that I also didn't really consider, and I think that I definitely should have looked into it before, but I'm someone who identifies as LGBTQ, and I didn't like do any research about South Africa and you know, LGBTQ communities in that space. And it was pleasantly surprising to find that like South Africa is like, or Cape Town specifically, is known as like the gay capital of the African continent. So that kind of worked in my favor, finding community there and being around people from all over the world who are still like me. And so things like that, I wish I would have considered. And I feel so blessed and lucky that it all worked in my favor. But it was surprising to be like, oh, okay, this is actually like really awesome as opposed to like really terrible, even though I didn't know that before. I got really lucky. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Anah.
Thanks, Erick. Yeah, so when I was choosing a program location, I didn't really think specifically about any of my identities, other than the fact that I am a native English speaker who would like to learn how to speak Spanish better. And I guess I know that I look very American or Nordic or European, and that I would definitely stick out wherever I definitely stuck out in Spain a lot more than I expected to. I am a solid head taller than like everyone, but it was nice in that I did have, or a little bit of my decision was based on going somewhere that I would be able to practice my Spanish without people immediately assuming that I don't speak Spanish. I did have that happen sometimes as I traveled throughout Spain. In Madrid particularly, people kept trying to speak in English to me or offer me English pamphlets, and I said, no, I speak Spanish as well. And in that regard, I guess, I mean, there were times where I definitely felt super awkward just in public spaces because I was so tall, but this isn't something that negatively impacted my experience at all. I was very fortunate in that the not only the students at the IES program, but also those in the University of Salamanca that I took classes with were very kind and welcoming and willing to help me when I wasn't sure on things. So I'd say overall, a very good experience. And I don't think that I had any particular identity that really impacted my choice in program.
Yeah, so I was a little worried about being on a science program, especially like a outdoors focused program, because sometimes outdoors culture can be a little bro-y. And I was pleasantly surprised to find the program was actually 18 women and 3 guys. And 2 of our 3 professors were women, and the center director was a woman. So you might have to ask the guy how he felt on that program. But yes, that was one consideration I had. And I did ask in the interview, like, how hardcore is this going to be? They assured me that there's balance around. I also, like Eric, did not look into LGBTQ factors, but there are a number of other queer folks on in the group, and it was a very welcoming group. And because I knew that most of the students were American and the organization was American, I wasn't too concerned about that identity because the program was so insular and we didn't interact with the community very much.
Yeah, so this is like our last question before we get into the Q&A segment. What is something you knew, you wish you knew about the process, whether it's like studying abroad or it's the program you went to or like choice of classes, something that you could give as a tip to the people who are considering going abroad. So I'm gonna start off. So yeah, I wish I knew the intensity of the program. Like, fine, it was naturally like with that moving, it wasn't just like the academic shift, it's also the social shift. Like you're moving after every month. So at a point where now I know where to get the bus, well, where to like I know my way around. I have to move and go to a new country. And like there's countries that have different time zones as well. So like it was very long flights. Most of the weekends would go through flying, and then you're in a new country. And like, so I think for about, if I'm not mistaken, for about 6 months of my life, including the visas and including coming back to the US, I was just moving every month, and it kind of took a toll on me at some point. So I think it's something to consider in terms of like your, like how you, like I wish I knew about that. Then my program actually, I think Emma can talk about this. I called her and when I was in Barcelona, things weren't working. So there was sort of like an internal, so internally, like with other students of color and like the students in the program and the professors, things weren't working well. And the admin of the program had to be told, and like some students actually left the program. So there was so much that was happening within the program, and because it was so insular, like it really kept like the dynamics also shifted, and also it took a toll on the group. Like we are living in these big fun cities, but also you now have like kind of like cliques happening in the group, and some people are not happy with the program. Like, so it really took a toll. So I think it's something to consider, or like maybe you could find yourself in that situation, like reaching out to like also finding support in your other peers who are also studying abroad would be really nice. So I know some people, and another thing I wish I knew was like it would be nice to go abroad at the same time as your friends go abroad, like if academics work well, because what then happened is that I went in the fall and my friends went in the winter. So it was like, I come back to bed, it's fine, I'm happy, I'm back, but like my friends are not there, and like So I think it's something to think about in terms of your support system, in terms of your courses as well. So yeah, I think I'll answer the rest when we get to the Q&A. So I'm gonna pass it on to Miles.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Nicole in terms of communication and trying to, I don't know. So a lot of my friends went abroad winter semester, and I feel very sad for them that they couldn't have the full study abroad experience that I had due to the pandemic, unfortunately, and just feel for them and just wishing that they could have or share the same memories that I had. But definitely one thing that I would like to talk about as well is time management, because I think, at least for me, in Madrid, Spain, I was taking 5 classes from Monday to Thursday, Friday off. So I had always like a 3-day weekend. But the classes, unlike Bates, weren't really for necessarily focusing on the grade, but more so the experience, or having all classes be completely in Spanish, with different professors speaking in different, I think, accents or tones. And that was really sort of interesting and fun to experience. But more importantly, I definitely had a lot of time in my hands, surprisingly. So I did stuff such as I went to a gym membership and bought a gym membership for 3 or 4 months. Me and my friends traveled to different parts of Spain, and we did a big trip to Marrakesh, Morocco, for a weekend. And so, yeah, there was a lot on specifically the weekends that you could do. But just as, for example, as the weeks go on, you realize that time flies. Time really flew by, and I looked up, and immediately it was midterms, and it was already middle of October, and I didn't have that long of time left in Madrid. So really, time management in the terms of what you want to do outside of class. Do you have maybe enough friends, or maybe there was a lot of students in the program who traveled throughout Europe or throughout the world themselves during the weekends, because they just had that free time. And yeah, I would say another thing, in addition to time management, is finances as well. Particularly in a place such as Europe, in Madrid, Spain, there's a lot of tourist traps, and a lot of places where, people try and get your money if you don't pay attention. And particularly in Europe, there's a lot of pickpockets. And yeah, I was lucky to have my orientation actually go through training where to beware of people who might approach you, who might say hi and then just like pick your pocket or whatever. And so, yeah, just be more mindful and be more aware of the surroundings that you are with the time that you have. So yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna hand it off to Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would second everything Miles said. I think things that I really thought about were, or wish I knew more about, were finances. I remember there was like one trip that I couldn't afford to go on in the program. So I opted out of doing that trip, but I had heard from other students who also studied abroad that, Bates does a really good job of listening to students. And so if you do find yourself in a situation where you need funding or you need more support, they're always willing to do that. I think that was something that I wish I thought more about, just like how to save up for the trip and be ready to do a lot of things as you are traveling in a new country. I was surprised with my program that at the University of Cape Town, classes actually ended a month before I was supposed to leave my program. So for the next month, I had finals weeks, but with their finals, it's not a week, it's like a month. So they're like all spread out. And I had one final the first week. So the last 3 weeks, I had nothing to do. So that I did everything, and I went to Namibia and I went to Mozambique, and I just like had the most fun exploring and finding those experiences. And also we, in our orientation program, we talked a lot about pickpocketing and stuff like that. So yeah, so seconding everything that Miles just said, I think those are really cool things to know about and hear about now, even though you're going to hear about them a lot more as you near the program, but just something to start thinking about as you think about studying abroad, thinking about traveling, and just like entering new experiences.
Emma, then Anna.
Yeah, there's, I think like Nicole said, if you choose a program that's very insular, you have to be prepared to dig into that insular life, because you are going to be with these people all the time. In my case, we shared rooms. I was in a room with 3 other people, and our rooms were next to each other, and we all shared a bathroom. We all ate together. We took all of our classes together. We went all of our field trips together. We did all of our spare time together, especially me, because I couldn't speak Spanish. I was really dependent on other people who could speak Spanish, which is on me, not on them. So it had many rewards, and I made some really wonderful friends, and I still am very close with them, especially all the quarantine stuff we went through. But it is not, and I heard from a friend who did a program in Ireland before she came on my program, that it's extremely different from being in a city, and kind of the cultural immersion wasn't there. So that's one thing I did miss in my program, is that we didn't get to meet Peruvians who weren't academics or coming to talk to our class about their specialties. I guess another thing I wish I'd known is that if you get sick, there's not a lot of ways to get treatment, especially where I was, which was an hour and a half away from a hospital. So we had some UTIs, we had a kidney infection, some other unexplained illnesses that required hospitalization. So, you know, I loved going to a remote place and seeing this really unique ecosystem, keeping in mind that pretty much everything in the Amazon evolved to try to kill you, because it's competition in the rainforest. Just keeping in mind that it's really important to do everything you can to stay healthy, because if you do get sick, and most of the time it's not your fault, but if you can take precautions, it will save you a lot of pain and probably a lot of money, depending on where you go.
Yeah, so I would probably echo what some others have said as well about just knowing your options for travel and your options for what to do when you're not in classes, because I think, at least for me, I felt like I was really behind the game when everybody already had all their flight plans and everything. And I was like, hang on, we can just do that. And especially if in Europe, and I'm not sure how it is in other places, obviously I can't speak to that, but travel is super affordable. Like I got a round trip plane ticket to Brussels for like $40 and stayed in a hostel for $15 a night. So it was great. And also hostels aren't dangerous like they are in the US. So that's also really cool. So it's definitely something to know ahead of time before you go. So don't shell out for the Airbnb, like unless you're staying with 6 people in a 2-person Airbnb. Hostels are super safe for the most part. Like do your research obviously beforehand, but that is one thing that I wish I would have known beforehand. And then, yeah, also just knowing your travel options, which is really cool. Knowing that it's a 5-hour train ride to get to Portugal. And just other things, just know your opportunities. Also, my program did a really good job of showing us some of the options that we had for joining clubs or joining team sports to really become immersed in the culture of the cities that we were in. So when I was in Salamanca, I was able to join an ultimate Frisbee team and an environmental group through the college, which was really awesome and allowed me to meet a lot of other people who weren't part of the program and to really feel some of the independence, in quotes, of kind of being by myself in Spain. which was also really cool and allowed me to, I wouldn't say like become part of the city because I was only there for, 4 months, but to the degree that I was able to immerse myself and kind of become part of the community for a little bit. So that was definitely something to check out when you go abroad, if you go abroad, just to know that those options are out there and that you can dig for them.
Awesome. Yeah. So now we are in the audience Q&A section. Yeah, just if you have a question, unmute your mic and ask it. Yeah.
I have a question. Hi, my name is Adelaide Alma. I'm a sophomore. And my question is, could you guys walk me through what happens during the weekdays and the weekends, like when class starts and when it ends, basically like social life and what the weekend is like, and like, is it similar to dates?
Yeah, Eric, want to take it?
Yeah, so one thing that was really cool going to a major city like Cape Town was that there was so much going on in the city that the school almost felt, I don't know if secondary is the right word or supplementary, but I felt like when I was there, I was less of a student and more just like a person doing this thing on the side called school. My classes didn't meet every day and they weren't as long as they are at Bates. And so I would go to my classes, do the work that I had to do, allotting myself maybe like 2 hours maximum, just so that after 4 p.m. to the rest of the night, I could do whatever I wanted. And that was exploring the city, going to all these restaurants. I'm a big like social life person. So I loved exploring nightlife opportunities and being with friends and just like meeting people. Like that was the best thing. And like saying this all out loud, I'm like, man, like I forget I'm in a pandemic because that time was just so awesome. And I feel so grateful that I went during the first semester, so my semester wasn't interrupted. But that time, I feel like, school again was there, and I was there to do the school. But you'll hear a lot of students also talk about how study abroad is really meant to get outside of that school environment and really enjoy the environment around you. And so I would just prioritize that. I know some students really go and search for programs that offer research opportunities and stuff like that, but I wasn't there necessarily for an academic experience, more so than a social experience that I was going to remember. I tell people now that like Cape Town's my favorite city in the world, and I think it's because of all that free time I had on my weekdays and my weekends. And so just knowing that if my friends wanted to go out or if we wanted to stay in, that it was nice having all that time. So yeah, it was awesome. I loved it.
So I didn't have free time. But what was nice was it was like a field intensive. So what we would do is we would go to school in the morning. So we'd have a lecture in the morning. So from like 8 to 10. Then at 10, we have like a short break. Then at 11, we go separate. So let's say you are going to talk to the mayor, or somebody's going to the hospital, or some group is going to, so I did a case study on river pollution in the Matanza Ruechuelo River Basin. So we actually went to the river basin and we like spent time on the boat and things like that. So that would take up a long day because you would end up on the other side of this town, and then you commute a whole hour only to get home at like 6 p.m. And by that time, you're just so done. And because we were moving around so much, my weekends, like my first weekend and my last weekend of the month, were automatically gone because I was on a flight to another continent. So that left me with 2 weekends in between. But to be honest, like I never did work in the evening. So like in as much as I would spend the whole day like that, if I'm really energetic. So for example, in Argentina, really funny, people go out, people have dinner late. So like 9 p.m. So I really struggled. Yeah, it's something to think that you notice you have to adjust as well, like meal time. So I am an early eater, like 4:30 at Bates, but in Argentina, you eat at 9 p.m. then you start preparing to go out at midnight, then you get to like the out like at like 1, then you have fun until sunrise. So, and that's okay, you know? So I think it's like, that was like Argentina then, but with Cape Town, it was different. It was like on the US system, and like we had to be more careful when we went out, and like we Ubered everywhere and things like that. So I would say it depends with like the type of program, but mine was really intense. So I spent more time doing structured work. Like it was fun things, like I would end up at the museum, but like it's structured. It's not mostly like my independence.
Yeah, I would say that in Spain, one thing that definitely surprised me, I'd echo what Nicole said about meal times. We ate lunch at 2:30 and supper at 9, and it took a long time to adjust. I just had to keep fruit in my backpack all the time. And then another thing, yeah, so things tended to start later and later for sure. My classes started at 9 instead of 8, and a lot of the Spanish students were like, oh man, it's so early. And I was like, whoa, I've been up for hours. And then another time I was trying to catch an early bus at like 5:30 in the morning, and people were still out. And a professor, he said, oh, just like really casually talking about something psychologically related. And he said something about, oh, when you get home at 7 and then you go to bed, and all the students were just nodding. And I was like, whoa. So that was definitely a surprise for sure, just the different times and how things work. But I'd say in terms of free time and class time, there was definitely a balance. And a lot of my classes were discussions or group projects, or they called it field work. So kind of things like that, where you'd go out and you do some kind of, and I took classes in psychology and anthropology related fields. So it was definitely studying people and studying the culture within Salamanca. So that was really cool. I guess, sorry, getting off track from your question, but definitely, there was definitely a balance between class and free time. I'd say I had way more free time when I was in Salamanca than I have at Bates. And it took a little bit of time for me to realize that, because at first I was like, whoa, I should be doing all my essays all the time, and I need to revise this, and I need to get better at this. And then it occurred to me, like, I'm in Salamanca probably once in my life. I don't think that I should be spending all my time just rewriting and rewriting these essays to get them perfect. And just really realizing, and I think being mindful of your priorities and why you're there. And it's totally respectable if you are there for a research project, or if you are there for academic programs. But for me, I definitely got the most benefit out of it by or through my non-academic endeavors, for sure.
Yeah, my program was, I think more like Nicole's. It was 6 days on for classes, started at 8, ended at 5 or 6. And that was just in the classroom. And then I'd say about half the time, maybe a little more than half the time, we would be out in the field. And this was field work too, except we were like in the field, like an actual field. So it was like, we did a lot of research around that, and then we had to come back and do analysis of the research. So there was not much free time. And I've heard from students on other School for Field Studies programs that they had a lot more free time than we did. So I think even within the same organization, it depends program to program what the workload is going to be like. But that's another thing I wish I'd known, is that there was no free time. And it was just really intense academics. In the end, it ended up being worth it, but something to keep in mind for sure.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? We have time for a few more.
Hi, my name is Aaliyah. I'm a first year, and I just wanted to thank you guys all for sharing your experiences first. And my question is, how helpful was Bates in terms of your financial situations? Like, if more of you guys were like, you needed more assistance, how helpful was Bates in that process?
Yeah, I can take that. So I had to apply for a lot of visas, so Bates really helped me with that as well. And my financial aid completely transferred. So I just went there and I gave them my study abroad invoice. So they completely transferred my study abroad money. So that's something to think about. Like I went to a very expensive program, like as compared to other students. So it was my whole, like it was more or less the same cost as base. But I have a friend who went to London and his tuition was cheaper. So like he lived in a very fancy apartment when he was studying abroad because like he could afford. So I think it's something to talk about. You can actually schedule time with Center of Global Education and Bates Financial Aid to talk about that. And I was able to like also get my flights covered by the program and Bates as well. So, because I ended up in Zimbabwe, so like I needed another international flight to now come back to the US. So talk to the Center of Global Education and they can also help you. There is actually someone in financial aid who is in charge for study abroad. They can walk you through the process. And also like when you choose, like make sure there are not other, like Bates has one fee. So everything is put in one fee. Like study abroad puts separate things sometimes. So like check like what are these separate things and make sure you can even have a call with the financial aid and like you can talk to them. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you so much. Yep.
Yeah, I can second what Nicole said. Bates covered almost all of my tuition, but I was also able to receive help from the program. Sometimes they give scholarships within the programs. And also because this was a unique situation, but I was stuck in the country during quarantine. The program paid for my repatriation flight once I got the bill, 6 months later. They also helped pay for my luggage because I was in another city, not the city that I was supposed to be in. They get shipped back to the US. So Bates was extremely helpful, but also sometimes the program can really help you because they're often set up to bail you out in rough situations.
I'd also echo what's been said and just add that, and maybe this was said, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but Bates will match, at least for me, and I think this is just generally, they were able to make it so that what I paid for Bates semester is what I paid for a semester at study abroad. So my program cost a little bit more than what a semester at Bates would have cost for me. So then Bates paid the extra so that I was paying what I would pay had I been at Bates.
Great. I think we have time for one last question before we have to wrap up. If anyone else from our audience has any questions, just unmute your mic and yeah. All right, seeing none, I just want to like to thank everyone for coming to this panel for Study Abroad 2021. I would like to thank Anna, Emma, Eric, of course, Nicole for co-moderating it for me, and of course, Darren for heading us set it up and organizing it. So thank you so much and have a great night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.